What's up, everybody? This is Josh Lyles, founder over at Salesdash CRM, joined by my colleague Drew Brinley, who's a sales advisor here at Salesdash. Today, we're going to be talking about on the Freight Sales Content Pod here. We're going to be talking a little bit more about shipper prospecting and how this ties in with CRMs and how people use CRMs as freight brokers, freight agents, forwarders on the asset side and whatnot when it comes to shipper sales. So, Drew, you've been with Salesdash now for a year, former freight broker and freight tech guy now at this point, freight tech sales guy. What would you say are the common scenarios where people are looking to use and transfer to CRMs for shipper prospecting?
I would say they're either coming from another system, or they're coming from spreadsheets, or I've had plenty of guys talk to me that are coming from good old-fashioned pen and paper in a notebook. So really kind of, from all over the spectrum of as far as how robust or as far as how simple their sales system is. But yeah, then they come to us and they're looking for more organization. They're looking for better visibility, easier ways to report on, what they're, activating on and what they're following up with, and just better organization and visibility overall. But it's so important. I mean, it's like everything you do is you want to feel like you're progressing toward that first load or a good customer relationship, or figuring out if there's any pain with a certain shipper. And every action you take, you want to document and stay on top of, because if you're juggling a ton of stuff, like, it's going to get very overwhelming very quick. So I think that's where most people have different scenarios that they come from, and then they come to us looking for a little bit more.
Is there anything like from the spreadsheet people? Because everybody starts, I feel like, in the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
But from the conversations that you've had for people looking to make the transition, like, when is it from the spreadsheets? Like, what's getting overwhelming in the spreadsheets? Like, when does it make sense to go to the CRM? Is there anything in specific that's stuck out to you on that?
Yeah, I think it's follow-ups. I think it's, when they're in the spreadsheet and they're realizing how many columns they keep going down and they're getting to closer to WXYZ, scrolling all the way to the right.
Double letters.
Yeah, when they're like, hey, maybe I should have a better system here. And also, there's a ton of times in shipper sales prospecting, especially, that you give someone a call or an email and they just ghost it. And like, you need to notate that, but nothing really happened. So now you're just taking up more space in your spreadsheet for stuff that didn't happen, but you have to keep track of it, because you have to know like what you've logged and who you've called and who you've reached out to, even if they don't get back to you and it's a simple email or call. So I think spreadsheets, if you're serious about prospecting and you've been doing it for a while and you have quite a few prospects that you're reaching out to, eventually a spreadsheet just gets too overwhelming.
I think the thing that gets overwhelming in it too, from all the spreadsheets that I've seen, are all the colors, because everybody's just highlighting green, yellow, and red as whatever their little statuses are of gotten in contact, haven't gotten in contact, stop reaching out to this one. And it's just a colorful spreadsheet after a certain point. But it like you said, I think the biggest thing that becomes hard to manage is the follow-ups and who to prioritize. I think if that list is getting past 40 contacts, it gets much harder to manage. And you probably just start to lose time, or it just even just from like looking at the spreadsheet, you may look at it and say, this just feels like a crazy thing to try to go and just tackle and get after, right? Versus just like a task and say, cool, I just got to reach out to this contact or this person. What about the transitions for those that are already in a CRM? Because we kind of see it two different ways. It's the CRM. Sometimes it's the light version of a CRM in a TMS, but primarily it's one of the large CRMs that are out there. What have you seen are some of the pain points that people have had with that?
Yeah, I'd say it's more so the DNA of the system that they're coming from. The most CRMs that they're coming from are huge companies that are very successful in their own right. But oftentimes they're just generic systems that have kind of, been placed and set up for multiple industries for different sales process. So shipper sales prospecting is very specific. And the DNA, for example, in something like a HubSpot is more focused on contact based. Whereas, for shipper sales prospecting, it's more so focused on account based, B2B as opposed to B2C. So just the DNA of our system being more logically thought out for a shipper sales process and sales cycle. I would say that's the first thing that stands out to most people when they take a look at Salesdash coming from another system.
What's your favorite freight specific feature that we've got?
Probably the quotes.
Why?
Because it's such an easy way to see a few things. It's an easy way to see the history of your quotes. It's an easy way to see, maybe I've quoted this one twice now, the same lane, and I've lost it. And maybe I wouldn't have that history somewhere else because they're not a customer yet. So it's not in my TMS. But now I'm quoting it and I've lost it twice now. And I can go back and say, hey, I have a better rate or source some better capacity for that lane and go back to them. So it's kind of like a follow up in and of itself. You see the history, but then you can also action on it. And I just like it because it's pretty easily organized and visible in our system, and built out specifically for logging quotes, whereas other CRMs just don't have that capability.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the main thing that we've seen and the reason why we even wanted to make it to where we just wanted to even have the ability to log quotes, because I know the data entry piece cannot be as fun for a lot of people at times, but it's just, hey, if somebody's logging a quote for a Dallas to Houston drive-in at X rate and whatnot, and you're trying to see all the shippers in your system that move Dallas to Houston, or even carriers, right? Which we won't talk about the carriers as much in this one, but I just think that that's the biggest thing, is just who all do we know, has commonalities here. Is there potential backhauls other places? But yeah, I don't know. I find it to be very beneficial, and we've gotten really good feedback on people being able to do those searches. Going back to more of just like a fundamental basis, because I think that this also goes back into, whether it's a spreadsheets or even just from like some of the other systems, but contact management when reaching out to shippers, I think is pretty important. What do you see as like some of the practices that haven't been great from other systems when it comes to contact management? And how do you think, or like, where would you say from a contact management standpoint, CRMs can be really helpful just from shipper prospecting in general, from experience doing it, now working with a bunch of teams in it?
I think it's huge because you never know who is the person that's going to end up awarding you freight. You can think that it's a shipping coordinator and it might be a transportation manager, and you need to have that very well documented in your CRM. Who have you reached out to? What have they told you? Where does that lead to next? I've heard of the the process of reaching out to blanketing like multiple contacts in multiple different outlets. And if you're doing that, then you need to like log it correctly and make sure that you have note of it moving forward. Like, did I send a LinkedIn DM to this person and then email this person, then text this person? There's so many different people that have influence within a company that don't even award the freight, but maybe if they believe that you can solve some of the pains that they're having, they will get you in front of the DM. Like, all that stuff can go into, you never know how you close an account. You never know how you get that first load. And so it's very important to manage your contacts effectively and organize them well, because any one of them can be the reason why you end up bringing on your first load.
Sure. Yeah. And I think people underestimate all the time too, just tracking your steps. Who have you actually reached out to, when, and then also who have you not reached out to? Because it's just so easy to lose sight of that stuff in the day to day. And I think so much of that matters if you're cradle to grave or split. But at the same time, it sort of doesn't, because like you've got high volume activity one way or the other, in the brokerage or agency that you may be at. So,
oh, dude, I can't tell you how many times I've, thought for whatever reason, it was this one contact that I needed to get in touch with. And months will go by. I'm trying to get a hold of them. Nothing. Just complete
Yeah.
ghost. And then I finally do. And they're like, oh, no, it's actually Dave in a different department. And I've had Dave on the radar the whole time, but I never reached out to him because I thought it was this person.
Yep.
So
I think that happens in all B2B sale. I mean, you know, for us, like we're still B2B sales, right? Obviously reaching out to brokerages and agencies and stuff. But that's still going to be the same way for us. Like we see the one person's name in the system and or you know, we just feel that, oh, they're the VP of sales, so they're the person that we should be reaching out to. But job titles, I mean, you got to take with a grain of salt. They all mean so many different things in so many different places.
mhm.
And I mean, shoot, man, even like on the CRM front, like I've had a couple of times where the CFO is like our main contact and honestly very well versed in sales.
Mhm.
So you just never know of just like who does that. So whether it's, you know, again, tech, brokerage, anything like that, you just don't really know who's really involved.
Mhm.
But yes, I mean, that's where I think also just in the lead management aspect, you know, when people consider the amount of calls that they're making or activities that they're making, so much of it depends on the size shipper. Because if it's a smaller shipper, there really may be one or two contacts that you're reaching out to. But for those mid-market to enterprise ones, I mean, you're going to be looking a lot of times like 4+ contacts within that account. So if you're talking about all the outreaches with calls, with emails and all that stuff, like working one account is typically going to require multiple outreaches. It's not just like, all right, cool, one call, next account, one call, next account. That's not working those accounts. That's not how those people do it. Any enterprise sales rep, I was just talking to a team of ours today that has an enterprise rep. They've got 30 accounts in their name, and that's it. Because in those accounts, they can have 10+ contacts. It's keeping them busy.
Oh yeah. And which facility runs what, and do they all have their own decision-making power? Does it all go up to corporate? Is there a portal involved? You know, it's just such a beast when you tap into that world. 20 accounts could keep you busy, really. I mean,
Yeah.
it can be a ton that goes into that. And also, you don't want to move quickly with those kinds of leads. Like, you want those relationships to be built for a long time. And so it's going to take a while for you to get the discovery and, you know, where you could find value in that. You don't want to just try and bring on as many enterprise shippers as you can. You want to lock in a handful of really good relationships where you're solving a big problem for them. And then that's how you can grow internally with those accounts. Um, I don't think the spray and pray method is probably the best way to go on like solid enterprise shippers.
Probably not.
You know,
Probably not. Speaking of discovery, how would you say the CRM can help sales reps that are reaching out to shippers in discovery?
I would say the best way that I leverage our system to teams that are especially have guys that don't have a book of business yet and they're doing a lot of discovery day in and day out is utilizing the shipper info tab. It's just such an easy way to organize the simple data points that you need to discover and either disqualify or kind of push to the next stage of prospecting, where we keep the equipment types, the weekly volume, the modes, and other things that are pertinent to that shipper to learn about and kind of use as a checklist, right? So you don't want to just go in blind and be like, well, I think I talked to them about equipment types a month ago, so maybe I'll talk to them about this time. You want to go in and have a few questions ready to rock. Most times these guys don't have a lot of time on the phone. So you want to go in knowing what you want to talk about. That'll help you get the discovery. And you also want to keep it organized. I mean, you don't want to be scrolling through your notes and previous calls or digging through your email to figure out what did I talk to Jim about, 8 months ago. You want to just see it as soon as you jump in the account. Okay, I know X, Y, and Z, and I need to find out X, Y, and Z.
Yep. Yeah, the refreshers, crucial of just, hey, what questions do we need to be asking? Because sometimes you're just flying blind, just calling and just dialing, and then you're getting all the no answers and pickups, and then the 18th one, you finally get a pickup and you're caught off guard. Like, what do I do in this situation?
Yeah.
So Yeah, I think that that's helpful. And um, I always just like to say, and especially in that process too, is just, when you have blanks, great, man. Those are questions that you can be asking, right? If you don't have anything that's filled out from information that you feel that you need to know about them. And yeah, you made a good point too of the disqualifying, because I mean, that part's important as well, right? Like you don't want to be reaching out to somebody for months that you should not be reaching out to if they don't move high enough volume that's reasonable for you to be calling and prospecting all the time. Or, even in another scenario where if they move a mode or primarily an equipment type that maybe you're just not well equipped to specialize in, and to help them out with, or even if it's a lane, like who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
and then when you get to a certain point and your shipper info tab is filled out with a bunch of information, that's the best time to call them up and say, "Hey, I know what equipment types you ship. I know the modes. I know the pain points you have. I know that it's 80% spot, 20% contract. I know these are your facilities. I know these are your lanes. Like, what else do I need to know in order to get a shot at my first load?"
yeah,
And that's a powerful call right there. Like, they know you're on top of it, and that's all from just reading down a list that you've saved over the course of however many discovery calls, emails that you've had with them. So
hmm
once you have that filled out, you can then leverage it and be like, I'm on top of it. I'm organized. I know what your shipping looks like, and I know we can help. Like, how do I get to a first load?
exactly. Yeah, it's probably more impactful and overlooked than it should be. Um, so I think it's helpful. Anything else that would be worth noting? Shipper prospecting that we haven't talked about, just CRM wise?
Shipper info is really good. I would just say the follow up hygiene.
Of
Um,
course.
that's probably the biggest one. I mean, making sure that you're setting the right follow up tasks for the right times. Um, always asking when's a good time to jump back on a call. Like, when do you have 2 minutes next week? Whatever the case is, and just getting very specific so that you can prioritize your time, especially with cradle to grave reps. Their days can get really hectic. They can only maybe have 30 minutes to 2 hours of prospecting a day. If they have a busy day, they need to know, okay, if I can get to prospecting today, what are my 10 tasks, 20 tasks that I'm going to knock out that'll give me the best chance of moving a prospect closer to a customer. So just having good follow-up hygiene is super crucial in the discovery process.
It's all about follow ups.
Mm-hmm.
Follow ups are crucial. And I mean, it really is one of the biggest reasons that people look to use the CRM just in general. So, yeah, I mean, I feel that whether it's with prospects or with customers, there's always an area of improvement for follow ups, no matter what.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, this has been good stuff. I mean, this topic again, we were primarily talking more about shipper prospecting, working to get new shippers, why people even look to use a CRM, whether it's from using spreadsheets with all the colorful highlights and that kind of stuff, or if you come from a complex CRM or even a TMS that has a light version of a CRM, and like why we have built certain things at Salesdash to really help freight sales reps when it comes to shipper prospecting. Um, the importance of contact management, the importance of follow-ups, discovery, capturing lanes for the shippers that you're talking to, and how you can leverage that data. All that stuff is pretty important stuff that we specialize in at Salesdash. So if you're ever in the market looking for a simple CRM with easy workflows, but that's more tailored towards the logistics industry, check out sales-crm.com, and you can learn a little bit more, start a free trial, get in touch with Drew over here, and he'll give you the crash course.
Sounds
Good stuff,
good.
Drew. Cheers.